We are live here on Plus One EXP's Roll for Content channel. My name is Tony Vicente. I'm Chief Alchemist here at Plus One EXP, where sometimes we get names right, but not a lot today. We are continuing our X-Scream week that Keegan put together. I'm very excited to be here tonight playing Under the Autumn Strangely with Graham Gentz, who those are the only names that I have used to describe this game. I did not call it Into the Autumn Strangely. I did not call Graham Grant earlier. I know whether there's an E in your name or not. All the things.
Honestly, I think it's thematic. My game is about mutable reality and how we're all going to share in that space. So I'm going to give you a pass on all of it, literally all of it.
Thank you for letting me mute your reality throughout the course of the day today. I really appreciate it. Yeah, we're a weird little brand that multi-classes in tabletop game design, beard and skincare alchemy, and the Bardic College of Content Creation. Our main hope here at Plus One is help amazing players find great designers whose games that they can fall in love with. We do that in a lot of different ways, but the most fun way is sitting down to play those games with those designers and some friends of ours. Today, that's exactly what we are doing. We are playing Under the Autumn Strangely, which is about to go out to backers. This was a Zine Quest project this year or Zine month?
Last year. I mean,
last year.
It's they doing Zine Quest every 6 months is wild. So it's the one previous.
However, you did the quest, the August quest.
Correct.
That everybody was like, they're like, hey, it's gonna be cool. There's a special thing, and then maybe it's that it was on the main screen at Gen Con. We're not exactly sure why they did
That's the one I did. Yes.
Okay. Cool.
It was in Oilers Stadium. There was a big thing for it on the projector.
Yeah. And so for your game specifically, or just for Zine Quest?
Oh no, for Zine Quest.
They're like, Zine Quest. Let's pick our favorite game from the entire thing. That's Under the Autumn Strangely. That's it, folks. Thanks for coming. This was Gen Con. Tell us a little bit about who you are, what you do, and tell us about the game we're about to play.
Absolutely. So my name is Graham Gentz. I use he and thee pronouns. I'm a facilitator and game designer. And tonight we're playing Under the Autumn Strangely, which is a cooperative pastoral horror game full of anachronistic Americana and a land that never was. Prep is death, so nobody really knows exactly what we're going to be doing on the stream here. It's out digitally, so you can find my stuff at my itch page, grahamgentz.itch.io. And I'm excited to share this space here with everybody else.
Awesome. And we have linked to that down in the show's description, whether you're watching now or later. You should be able to click over directly to the page on itch, find out more about the game as you're watching. Let me ask you a question before we meet our other players. Was it challenging making an RPG? Were there a lot of things you had to jump through to get your game made and out into the world?
Yes and no. The main barrier is myself.
Yeah.
The lovely people over at Wedding Games have a saying, which is ideas are easy, execution is hard. That is what I have encountered. I have so many ideas, but getting through the steps and being the boss of your own project is very, very difficult. So the last 5% takes more than like the whole rest of the work previous.
Yeah.
So in some ways it's very easy. In some ways it's extremely hard. Yeah. You need support, you need love, you need a community of people cheering you on.
Man, if only there was a community like that. And if you wanted to find a community like that, you could go to rpgzine.club which is a new monthly membership service that we have started that where we send out new and different RPG projects every single month. So if you like small zine weight RPGs, the kind of stuff we cover here on Plus One, if you want to help support emerging and expanding creators and help make our channel and our brand more sustainable, head over to rpgzine.club. Check out what we're up to over there. Help support the channel, help support great creators. Not Graham, but like Graham.
No matter what my answer was, it morphed into a plug. That was
no. If you've been like, it's totally easy. Anyone
totally
can
easy.
do it.
You do not need anyone to help you, let alone a service.
But yeah, we help work with people to get their stuff out there so they don't have to do Kickstarter. And I experienced the same thing. The last 5% is super hard. Like getting that PDF out easy, hitting send on the files. Man, sometimes a month goes by and you're like, did I not send those out yet? And then you realize you need to. And so I'm super excited for you. Can't wait to hold the book in my hands. And I know you probably feel the same way times a million. So let's meet our other players. Let's go down to somebody who is kickstarting something right now. That's Richard Ruane. Richard, why don't you tell us who you are, what you do, where folks can find you online?
Hey, I'm Richard Ruane, and I am a game designer who occasionally hangs out with Tony Vicinda, mostly when driving to Gen Con, where Tony and I get to spend more hours together than we do through the rest of the year. And I don't think we've ever gone 5 minutes with only one conversation topic because, we're cool like that and have a lot on our minds. I am the creator of Moonlight on Roseville Beach and Sherwood, and I use he, him pronouns, and I'm really excited to be here tonight.
Awesome. And Moonlight on Roseville Beach is up right now over on Kickstarter. What are you funding real quick? Just give us the quick and dirty.
Let's take a look. We are funding a new set of mysteries for Moonlight on Roseville Beach, which originally funded in 2021. We're funding hardbacks, and we're funding some grants and sponsorships for some creators, specifically queer creators that we are really, really proud to be associated with. And right now we are working on a stretch goal to get to fund a media Moonlight on Roseville Beach like multi-session campaign that would be directed by Anne the Gnome, who directs BK Do Crime. And we're really excited about that. We just finished funding Symphony Entertainment, Bridget Jeffries, and we may have the newly independent Plus One EXP with newly independent 2/3 queer owned Plus One EXP coming up as a stretch goal that's not been officially announced yet and not on the site yet. But
so it might not be happening. You could be making this all up right now.
No, yeah, it's look. I am way too lazy to make stuff up.
Let's play a role-playing game. Awesome. Yeah, we're super excited. Love the game. Our actual play of Moonlight on Roseville Beach that you can find over on the channel is super unhinged in the kind of weird things that happen when good friends get together to play a game and are very tired. And you should go check it out if you're into that energy. Super excited to have you with us. And then Mads, why don't you tell people the same about you?
Oh no. Oh goodness. I'm not a designer. I try to write, definitely for sure. I'm Madencholy, Mads for short, she, they pronouns. I'm a facilitator, GM of various games on my YouTube channel, Madencholy, and I'm also available under Madencholy on Discord as well as X and YouTube. So I really love playing games. I like running games, and I'm excited to be here.
Yeah, I'm super excited to play with you and Graham again after such a short period of time also too, because we got to play Lovecraft-esque just a couple of weeks ago, and now
We didn't have
we're back.
to. We did.
Did I say have to? We got to, and I'm very, very excited to sit down and play with y'all again and have Richard join us as well. So anytime we play on stream, we always use a couple different tools to keep us on track and on the same page to make sure everybody feels comfortable and safe. Usually we just use lines, veils, the X card, and the open door policy, unless the system that we're using has another set of tools that are built into it. Lines are things that may happen in the world of the game, but they don't happen while we're playing it. They're off off limits. They're things that cannot take place. Veils are things that may happen while we are playing, but we're only address them within a certain context, or if they come up, we just mention that they are happening and then move on, whether that's fading to black or just not going into detail on them. And then we also use the X card, which is the ability to say or type X at any point in time. Pause the game, identify what the issue is, though you don't have to explain why you don't like it, just what it is, and then we'll remove it and move forward in a different direction. We may update our lines and veils at that time. We have a strong line against sexual violence and sexual coercion on the channel, but let's go around and hear from anybody what other lines or veils that we may want to bring up. We talked about them a little bit before. I think we had basically a line into some some heavy veils on most isms. So transphobia, homophobia, racism, anything like that would be a line, or maybe a very strong veil if it is thematically needed. But we'll address those tenderly as they come up. And then harm to partner. Were there any other ones that we didn't get a chance to that I didn't just mention that we talked about before stream, or any that people want to talk about right now?
My automatic line is always sexual assault and sexual violence, and the isms I find as examples for veils, but having them as lines, of course, is absolutely acceptable. The line will take precedence. I often think about it being like sociologically out of scene, but you just never address it in scene is one way to do it. But I am 100% supportive of making these lines.
Cool. Anything else? Cool. Just remember, we have the X card tool also in play, so feel free to use that if something comes up. We also have the open door policy, which means you may see us need to get up, move around, step off screen for a minute, get something to eat, drink, talk to somebody. Those are normal human things that normal humans do. We're going to do them if we need to. If you need to do them while you're watching, you should go ahead and take care of yourself also too, and know that we will as well. With that said, let's hop into play, though I may, after a short intro, hop off screen to get a drink of water, because I said I was going to do that before we went live, and then I didn't. And I want to stay hydrated. So, Graham, I'm going to hand things over to you to take us into Under the Autumn Strangely.
So I'm thinking that we do all of the setup, and then we can take a quick break and then jump into chapters. How does that sound?
Sounds great.
All right. So I'm going to throw one more safety tool in here, because what I have found, because I love running con games, and usually it's people you don't know, what you do is you have this experience of naming a bunch of really awful things, and then you have to kind of like find that momentum and shift. So the X card is a very excellent beginning tool. And so the safety tool that I've included, it's also in the text of the book, is the opposite of the X card. It's the O card. You can imagine it that it's just like a card in the middle of the table, just like anything else. And it represents enthusiastic consent. It's also a great way to encourage players without interrupting them. So if somebody does something that you love, you can do one of these, or you can put an O in chat, whatever the case may be, just to show people when they're in the moment, when they're narrating, that like, oh, wow, people are with me, without getting in their face, and allow them to like feel that moment completely. So please use the O card. I find that it adds a really lovely energy to tables.
If you're watching right now and you love enthusiastic consent, give us an O in the chat or in the comment section.
There we go.
Just let us know that you love enthusiastic consent.
I'll do it right now. Look. Oh, that's right. Okay, so Under the Autumn Strangely, it's a storytelling game of pastoral horror. It uses anachronistic Americana because we are going to be in a land that never was. We're going to be collaboratively making a world that is uncanny and old, and we are actually going to embrace tonal clash at the table using 3 different roles. So there's 4 of us, so there is going to be 2 different players who are going to double up on one of the roles when we get there. And so we're going to be combining whimsy and the autumnal melancholy and a bit of sneaking dread. So the best way to talk about this is I'm going to describe these 3 roles. And so think about them and about which of them might appeal to you. There is a kind of like seat of the pants version of the game. Game is played in chapters of distinct chunks where you can rotate roles in between them. But since this is everybody's first time, we can absolutely stick the roles the whole time. That's the way I think we're going to do it for the stream game. So the 3 roles are the Traveler, the Arcadian, and the Terror. So the Traveler is very much a point of view character. When you're the Traveler, you are the character who is lost in the Never Was. You are foreign to it, and you don't know why you were there. So you're going to be struggling with the unfamiliar, both the wonders and horrors alike of like what's to encounter. And your duties are to provide whimsy to the descriptions and interactions of the world. So if you want to dive headfirst into a wild and surreal realm of discovery, the Traveler is for you. And of course, the world that you are in is largely the responsibility, but not solely, because we all share in this, is the Arcadian. The Arcadian is very much the Never Was itself, as well as all those who dwell there. You are going to be doing the bulk of like the rustic descriptions, peppering all that you do with this autumnal kind of pastoral feel. You're going to be establishing the tone for all of us to be playing with. Is largely responsible for the different characters who are going to be there. They are peculiar, but not necessarily dangerous for whatever reason. So it's the closest thing to a traditional GM role, just as the Traveler might be considered the closest thing to a traditional PC. And so if you like playing NPCs like jazz solos, then the Arcadian is absolutely for you. And so it is strange, right? It is odd. The denizens who live there, but not necessarily dangerous, because there is, in fact, something that's just not quite right about everything that's going on, and that is the Terror. The Terror is that creeping shiver behind every interaction. The perfect example of this is there's a description of something that goes on, and then there's this little ellipsis of, and something doesn't fit quite right about that. That is the Terror. It's this lurking feeling that something's not quite right. You may be a physical entity, you may not be, but if you like coaxing and suggesting, and you're intended to grow over time, your duties are to provide omens that kind of lurk in the background before ultimately perhaps you decide to reveal yourself. So if that appeals to you, then the Terror is for you. The mechanical aspects, which I'm going to put a pin in and come back to later, are we're all under the principle of narrative truth. A thing is true. You say a thing is true, and it simply is true, even if you are the Traveler's character. It's going to be from your perspective. So instead of asking, what do I see, what do I do, you could say, okay, my character sees a lantern swinging on the top of a branch. And it didn't exist before within the fiction for any of us, but now that it does. And so this is how we're going to be building it together. And the mechanical bits, the bits and bobs I had you use, is how for brief moments, you'll be able to contradict, you'll be able to change a detail that one of the roles has. But I'm going to put a big old pin in that and come back to it later. Just know that you are going to be controlling one person, and one role is going to be controlling you. So of the Traveler, the Arcadian, and the Terror, my good friends, my good, wonderful friends, which of them jump out to you immediately about what you would like to play?
Well, we're processing that information. What is your least favorite role to play as a player?
That's like what's your least favorite child?
Yeah, but I'm not asking you what your favorite child is. I'm asking you who your least favorite child is.
It's
totally
the same question,
non-loaded.
Tony. That's in between the lines. I mean, when I did theater for many years, I liked being an actor. I liked directing. I liked writing, and doing one made me want to do the other two. And so I love being a PC, and I love being a GM, and I love playing GM-less games, because doing one makes me think about the other two things that I'm not doing. And so when I have games like this, each of these roles are equally important, because I love the thin hierarchy that can kind of.
Oh no, I just meant like from a personality temperament standpoint. Is there one that you're like, I don't usually gravitate towards this one as much as I gravitate towards another one?
No, I don't think there is. I have different cravings, you know. Sometimes I want to be evil. Sometimes I want to be the person who's just being kooky characters. Sometimes I want to be engulfed and be the person who's struggling for control. You know, like they're all very fun.
Love it. Well, that was enough vamping between you and I. Does anybody have one that they are leading towards? Richard, I'm going to put you on the spot. Got one?
I am sort of torn between the Terror and the Traveler.
Okay. Mads, do you have anything that's leaning out towards you? Your audio is off.
Woo! No dead air.
Somebody had
Tony
to.
is back.
Somebody had to. So anyway, I was thinking either the Terror or the Arcadian.
Okay.
Mm.
And Graham, do you have one that you love them all? So
I do. I do, in fact. It's really about feeling on the table. Because we're going to double up on one of them, which is very exciting.
Yeah.
So we're either going to have two travelers, or we're going to have two Arcadians kind of working together and playing different things, or two terrors mean that like maybe it's two entities or whatever. And before we get to setup, it's all potentially quite interesting. So if we have two travelers, that means that you have somebody who a little bit has your back and can kind of interact with the weirdness. It all depends.
Yeah, I'll lean into saying traveler heavy, terror secondary. So I'll say I'd love to be a traveler.
Great.
And so since no one has made a strong statement yet, Richard, did you have one you were leaning towards more than the other?
If you'll take Traveler, I will take Terror.
Okay.
I think.
What if you two are the travelers? Mads is the terror, and I'll be the Arcadian.
Oh, nice, fantastic.
Yeah, we've got to do 2 in 1 roll either way.
Right.
It's a classic buddy cop show.
Exactly. See, you guys get it, right? So, great. We're gonna do setup now. The setup works in a 3-2-1 number of details, starting with the traveler having the most, the Arcadian in the middle, and the terror at the end. So, you two travelers. You have 3 sets of details that you need to come up with. The first is your basic information, so name, age, pronouns. The second set is how do you see yourself, and then how do others see you. This is a little vague intentionally. It can be about like an internal life, external life. It can be a physical description. It can also be more about personality, how others see you, how you see yourself. And then finally, what were you doing just before you became lost in the Never Was? Those are the 3 sets of details that you as travelers will have to come up with. Would you like me to repeat them?
Just the first. What's the 3?
Yeah, the first set is name, age, pronouns. I, as the Arcadian, have 2 details that I have to come up with and write down. One is an image of the autumnal pastoral, so something like leaves turning, or a dusty road, or a barn of peeling red paint. And then the second thing I have to come up with is a surreal agrarian image, so something like giant vegetables, or talking animals, or a tree growing human hearts, something like that. Mads, you're the terror. Welcome. You are the terror. You have 1 detail that you're going to come up with, and that is a theme that your descriptions are going to take on. Something like blood, bone, shadow, reflection. It can be physical. It could be more abstract. Getting myself ahead of myself a little bit, there are 3 chapter types. Each one is tied to the 3 roles: chapter 1, chapter 2, and chapter 3. They're also called the Arcadians chapter, the Travelers chapter, and then chapter 3 is, of course, the Terrors chapter. How much change you have goes up and down as the Traveler gets less influential and the Terror gets more. So, Mads, as you decide if you are in fact a physical entity or not, it's totally up to you. You cannot actually physically reveal yourself until it is chapter 3. Make sense?
Yes.
After everyone is done, the travelers will share their details with the table. The Arcadian and the Terror will keep them to themselves. And then I will describe what change and how we create chapters. And then we're off to the races, and that's the whole game.
Love it.
Speaking of vamping, how are your details going, Tony?
I'm done. I'm ready to go.
That's great. How about you, Richard? Do you have your 3 set of details?
I have got my details.
Wonderful. Okay. Richard, how about you share with the table, who your traveler is?
My name is Rory, 45 years old, he, him. Do you need all the details or just
Yeah,
basic
the
name?
whole thing.
All right, yeah. Rory seems energetic and enthusiastic, but sees himself as sort of homesick and sort of world weary. Or one is how he appears. The first is how he appears to others, and the second is how he thinks of himself.
Mm-hmm.
And then there is just before he became lost in the never world.
What were you doing just before you became lost in the never was? That's right.
Yeah. He was setting out to take on a new occupation in a new village. Had been a farmer and gave that up and set out to take up an apprenticeship in a new village and got lost along the way.
Awesome. Great. So you're on the road. You're on the road, and maybe the road is starting to look a little unfamiliar. You're like, I swear I've been on this road before, but that doesn't make any sense. Great. Tony, let's hear about your traveler.
So I'm playing Cassandra, aka Sandy, which my mom does not like when people call me, but she likes it better than what I call myself, which is Grit. Prescott. Sandy is 12 years old, uses she, her pronouns. I see myself as the toughest person, the most real person in Brightville, my small pastoral village in the countryside. Others see me as somebody they really hope is going to grow out of this phase and a little bit of a tryhard. I think my mom thinks of me as somebody who takes a little bit more risk, doesn't have the refined sensibilities of a young woman that she would like. Everybody else just kind of hopes that this is a phase. And then what was I doing right before I got lost? I was painting my tag, Tough Grit, on the outside of the blacksmith shop. And he came out to yell at me. And so I ran off into the forest and got lost.
Tough Grit. That's
Tough
your
Grit.
tag?
That's my tag. TUFF GRITT.
3 T's. Got it. I'm just gonna add another one. Great. So we have our two travelers. We've begun to create our collective hallucination. These are our point of view characters. We have Rory, and should we refer to your character as we are narrating? Is it Cassandra, Sandy, Tough Grit? Is it all interchangeable?
I think I will Grit will only respond to Grit. You know what I'm saying? But I think people call them by any number. My mom certainly only calls me Cassandra. That is my given name. And will respond when other people call me Sandy. Will ignore the name Grit. I kind of move in the opposite direction, where I'm less inclined to respond to Cassandra, very inclined to respond to Grit. So I think Sandy is probably the moderate name that most people call me as a compromise across the board.
Wonderful. Okay. So there's our two travelers. I am going to talk about the structure of the chapters, the flow of play. I'm going to leave a space for questions, and then we can take a short break, and then we'll jump into play. So as I alluded to earlier, Under the Autumn Strangely is broken down into kinds of chapters. Chapter 1, Chapter 2, and Chapter 3. Chapter 1 is also known as the Arcadians chapter. Chapter 2 is also known as the Travelers chapter. And Chapter 3 is also known as the Terrors chapter. Each chapter, each role will start off with a certain amount of change, which is represented by tokens. By the principle of narrative truth, everyone is just adding. The travelers can add anything to the world as long as it's from their perspective. So you basically have full narrative range to do these things. It just has to be like, I see this thing happen. The Arcadian doesn't have that limitation. It's a little more detached, and I can kind of zoom in and out. And the terror's descriptions are the same, but they're always going to be from an unseen observer. So we're all adding to what's going on, but you have these change tokens to contradict a detail that has been added in a certain direction only. The traveler is able to contradict a detail that is created by the Arcadian. This is to kind of establish the idea that you're struggling to find normalcy in this strange world. So I say something very odd or kind of spooky. You can say, nope, you pick up one of your change. This would be at a table, you'd pass it to me. So instead, we're going to very dramatically pass it through the digital space of your camera, and you're going to pick it up and you're going to add it to your little pool. That's right. You're going to chuck it at me, and I'm going to get hit in the face. So early on, you will have 3 change as the traveler. The terror, however, is able to contradict the traveler. A contradiction might work something like this. So the traveler says, okay, I take a bite of this delicious sandwich that's full of homemade jelly. And the terror would go, nope, and would pass change over to the traveler and say, as you bite into the sandwich, it's not jelly at all, but in fact, it's blood. Everyone is able to yes and continue to confirm what's going on. But if you want to contradict, you can only pass it over, and it's only one directional. The only person who can contradict the terror is the Arcadian. This kind of represents the idea that the terror is growing in power, but is of the never was, and as is everything else. So you can kind of sort of backdoor help the traveler in some ways, because you can kind of protect them from whatever horrible things that are happening as a result of the terror. So just to summarize, the traveler can contradict the Arcadian can contradict the terror can contradict the traveler. Based if you're on chapter 1, 2, or 3, you're going to have a different amount of change. It's probably best to start chapter 1, just to kind of get us going. That's the Arcadian's chapter. The opening is established by one of those 3 roles, which they're named after. And the most fundamental part is that we're going to ask a question. That's what we're all trying to answer. It might be something like, what happens in the field at night? Or what does live in the attic? If it is your chapter, you're the one going to be asking that question. But as you think of it, you're going to be going through my handy-dandy playlist of Under the Autumn Strangely music, and I don't know what the deal with copyright is. So instead, you're just going to describe the music. You're going to describe a piece of music that we're all going to then imagine in our heads. Whoever is responsible for that chapter is going to begin an opening narration. That is supposed to establish where we are physically and what's going on. And then the last thing you do is ask the question that ends your opening narration. And then we all are attempting to answer that question in scene using the principle of narrative truth. A chapter ends when 3 things are true. 1, the question has been answered. 2, one role has no change left, so 0. It's been passed around. If somebody passes you change as part of a contradiction, it goes into your little pool, so you can use it to add. Once somebody has 0, that's the other thing that has to be true. And the third thing is a player calls for the chapter to end, calls for a fade out. This is kind of giving some wiggle room in case, okay, we've answered the question. We absolutely know what's up in the attic. We haven't seen it, but we know what's up there. And we have succeeded in using the contradictions, but we want to play the scene out a little more. We're not quite at that perfect moment. And then any player can say, okay, that's it. That's our moment. And then you're done. So those are the 3 chapters. When you conclude a chapter, you talk amongst the table. Okay, do we do another chapter 1? That's kind of the whimsical one. Do we go in the middle? That's kind of moving down. Do we go to 3? It doesn't have to be 1, 2, 3. It's simply just a pacing mechanic for how long do you want to be at the table, or what makes sense to the story in the moment. You can think of it as a single contiguous story, or a serial with a bunch of different stories all being told. It's about what the table needs in that moment. So Does anyone have any general questions about the flow of play or what I've talked about? Of course, as we play, feel free to be like, how many change do I get again? That kind of stuff, of course.
Nope.
Richard, Mads?
We all start with how much change?
Depends on the chapter, and I've
Got it.
intentionally not included that as not to overwhelm you too much, as I'll just say whenever it is.
Okay. Alrighty, cool.
So Sandy and Rory have 3 change between them or 3 change each?
Great
For
question.
the first chapter.
The easiest way I have found is for you to have a shared pool so that you don't worry about, okay, whose change is being used when you want to contradict, or if you're being passed one, who gets it. So you're both going to start with 3, but it's like a shared pool that you both have.
Gotcha.
That's for chapter 1. Chapter 2, you're going to have a little less. And if the terrorist chapter, you only start with 1. Only 1 change in the terrorist chapter. Great questions.
Yeah, I'm good.
All right. Okay. So that's it, Tony. Do what you got to.
We're going to take a short little break so I can go hydrate. We're going to be back in just 1 minute. In the meantime, chat, tell us a little bit about what role you would have gravitated towards, or feel free to make up a traveler. You can't make up a Terror Arcadian because you can't do that. But, I mean, do that. Let us know a little bit about it. We'll be back in just 1 moment to keep playing Under the Autumn Strangely.
Not Richard though. Richard's
Ba,
not
ba, ba,
right.
ba. Ba, 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 ba. And we are back for EX Scream, our spooky stream week. That Keegan has been championing all week long. Has been really great. Different spooky streams of different games all week long here on Plus One EXP between our main channel and the cult. It's been really, really exciting. We got to feature a lot of different cool games. And right now we are playing Under the Autumn Strangely, which you can go check out at the link in the description. Oh, sweet. We're going to let chat play all the NPCs I just saw in chat. Very excited about that. The delay won't cause any issues. But super excited. Please go over, check it out. Physical copies are going to go out to backers in just a little bit. And then maybe there'll be some extra ones for people, different places that you can find.
Like if you want to save against some fear and want to see Tony and I physically.
Come to York, Pennsylvania. Beautiful York, Pennsylvania.
That's right. That's right.
Why go to New York when you can go to York Classic?
That's right.
So, awesome. We are about to enter into the first chapter, I believe. Graham, why don't you take it away?
Absolutely. So, the important things that each chapter begins with is the role, who's responsible for it. Chapter 1 is the Arcadians chapter, so that's me. I've thought of a question in my head, and in a moment, I'm going to jump in to a narration. The narration is going to establish where we are and what's going on. The other bit is that I have a playlist of music that I made on Spotify. The way that you're supposed to do it, I even have a little QR code in the book. You pick a song and you listen to it, and then whenever it's narrating, feels like the moment is right, you jump in and you start speaking. Not unlike a voiceover or something like that. Because we're on stream, and also I don't want to bother thinking about the copyright issues of music, I have a small addendum in the book which says you can also just describe the feel of some music. Because Americana and all these things is such inspiration for the design and the tone, for me, you can't talk about America without talking about American music. And so a lot of that style and tone was deeply influential to me when I was thinking about this game. So if nobody has any other questions, I'm going to jump in because I'm the Arcadian. And so I get to end my narration with the question, which I've thought of. And so I would like everyone to imagine a scratchy static of an old vinyl. And it's playing a slow cello tune. It's in minor key, and then you start to hear the crooning cry of an old man's voice. You could barely understand what he's saying because it's so elongated and so mournful, but you can feel the emotion of that voice. When Rory walked and walked and walked, he thought he would have found something by now. But instead, it's been tree after tree, worn sign after worn sign. He's thought about going back. Somebody stumbled out of the woods. And now, gosh darn it, he's stuck with her. She has said her name over and over and over again, but oftentimes it's contradictory or it changes, and she hasn't stopped talking since she stumbled out of that wood. And a fog has rolled up over it, making the dusty road impossible to see. There were a few broken farmhouses seen from the distance, but now the cold fog which curls out from the yellowing trees is making everything just a little bit too far to see. The moon must be large because it's a tiny sliver somewhere still visible through that fog at all times, giving far too much light than it ever could. And so, as Cassandra, Sandy, grit, tough grit, find their way to a crossroads with a sign that once had a label, but has long been worn off. Will they find the end of the cornfield?
I'm pretty sure it's this way. Like just right up ahead. That's what this sign points to.
You were pretty sure it was that way the last 3 times we passed a sign that looked like this.
Yeah, but that wasn't this sign. That was the problem. You know what? It's obvious you're worried we're passing the same sign over and over again. I understand that you're old and you're losing your faculties, but here, I'll go ahead and make a little mark here, and I just pull out a knife. What?
I've got a little bit of paint right here, and I'm just gonna put a little X. An X right there.
From the trees above you, there's a cawing of a crow staring at you as you pull out your paint.
Yeah.
It's kind of weird that you travel around with paint like that.
I like to do creative things every now and then. I take out a little pack of peanuts and I toss the crow a peanut.
Thanks, man.
You've been working on tossing your voice, haven't you?
No.
You all right?
The crows near the edge of the cornfield do talk sometimes. I've heard.
You've heard?
Yeah, they don't talk to me. The crow flies down and it lands on the sign and begins pecking at the top of it.
What? I mean, you don't ever talk to yourself?
Oh, plenty.
Well, yeah. So, like I said, the crows at the end of the cornfield, they talk sometimes.
No, at the end of the cornfield, the crows talk sometimes. You're the first crow we've met in the middle of the cornfield.
Uh-huh. Oh, yeah. I get that a lot.
From whom?
Oh, kind of anybody, everybody. They're like, old Norman won't do this. Old Norman, get out of the cornfield. Old Norman, give me my hat back. That kind of thing.
Oh, yeah, no. I hate it when people want their hats back.
I say, so lame.
Wiping my brush off. By the way, have you seen us pass this way before?
No. Who are you?
I'm you can call me Rory.
Hi, Rory. You got any the crow hops off the side and lands at you and starts hopping towards you. Any more peanuts?
Well, you know what my uncle always said is never turn down a crow who asks you a favor, because they remember.
So, yeah, my uncle said that all the time.
Your uncles both
that guy.
Your uncles both said that? You know what's crazy about that? I don't have.
My uncle is a human, and yours is a crow, and that crow's uncle is a crow.
I don't have an uncle.
I say hand. Oh, really?
Yeah.
I say hand in the crow 5 peanuts.
The crow scars him down. One gulp.
But this way goes to the end of the cornfield, right?
Oh, you can't miss it. I mean, basically, anywhere you go will be at the end of the cornfield, but it's a walk.
So, as long as we don't get lost, if we head in the direction the end of the cornfield.
Oh, sure. Yeah, just keep going.
Right.
So what I'm hearing right now is that I was right every single time I said this sign will take us to the end of the cornfield.
Well,
I don't
except
know.
we
You got any
changed
peanuts?
direction every single time we came to this sign. That may have been our flaw.
I think it's working out all right.
What was our original direction?
Towards the end.
Right. But if we keep changing direction, we're just going to go in circles.
Well, no, we already asked, and this crow hasn't seen us before, so we're not going in circles.
Okay. Look, all I would like to do is not spend the rest of my life eating corn. I'm sure you're tired of corn as well.
Yeah.
Also tired of the crows who hang out at the edge of the cornfield and don't talk to you.
Boy, howdy.
So, do you have any advice for making sure we get out after we turn right here?
Well, here's the thing. The field doesn't end.
So how do we get out if the field doesn't end?
I don't know.
If the field doesn't end, does that also mean it doesn't begin? Because every beginning is an ending.
Oh, I can see those peanuts smartifying you.
So how do we get in here if the field doesn't end? Because we would have had to come in at one end of the field, right?
I don't know. You tell me.
Well,
I would never presume to lecture a crow. My uncle always said you were the smartest birds.
Your uncle sounds pretty great.
my uncle never said that.
You don't have an uncle.
I'm sure your
That's
uncle's smart.
one of the reasons he never said it. So, but we got in here,
Right?
but there's
Yeah.
no end.
Right. Yeah.
Right.
Has anybody ever like dug a hole all the way to the other side?
Ooh, there's an idea.
I
Yeah,
just,
but
I just
is it
throw
an idea
myself
that-
down on the ground and start digging in the dirt.
It is an idea.
The crow
Is it an
starts taking
idea
a
that will actually
dirt nap
succeed?
and like splashing around the dirt too.
All right. Y'all, I need everybody to stop digging in the dirt for a second.
Pause and look up at you. For a
The crow is
sec-
upside down.
for-
Its feet are in the air, and it like tilts his head at you.
Yeah, for one exact second, and then I go back to digging the dirt.
How do we get
This
back
girl's
to the
got
wood?
grit.
Oh wow, you just created a monster.
Yeah, I start beaming. I look up, just covered in dirt.
Can I offer a change at this
Yes.
point?
Yes. What do you want to change about something that one of the travelers has just said? You can also add, if you're not contradicting anything, you can add anything you want.
Well, I want to change the nature of what grit is digging in, basically.
Great.
So does that count? Does that count as a change?
I mean, I didn't hear Tony establish anything about like I pull up sand. So you can be like you dig and you find. That would be okay.
Okay. Yeah. So I think as grit is, stopped and then turned back to start digging again, I think what she sees is in the dirt as the raven or crow is just kind of admired in it and starting to just flap around, getting dirty, it starts getting darker and darker, where it's no longer dirt. It feels viscous, like it's starting to stick to the bird's feathers, and grit is digging in and not feeling grains or soil. It's more like, again, something very sticky and something that won't let go.
My feathers, my beautiful feathers.
I think we hear Grit at first be like, "Oh, look, it's getting softer," and then says like, "Rory, get out of my light."
Just above the top of the broken sign with the X, the fog slowly parts just enough to see this gigantic orange sliver moon that just beams down light almost perfectly into the center of this crossroads where we now are.
You were saying?
There I are you all right? What'd you say your name was again?
Norman, old Norman, help, my feathers.
I start trying
I'm
to.
gonna pick Norman up and use the edge of my coat to sort of clean the feathers off.
Okay, that's all right. I think I can feel this one.
I start kind of wiping my hands off on my long kind of woolen coat, and then like I'm trying to rub the stuff off my face, but it's just making it worse. Like it was just dirt before, and now there are these thick black smears that almost look like war paint going across my face.
Yeah, very gritty. Don't like that. Never dug in the dirt before. Really more of like a tree guy, you know?
Or a top of the sign guy.
Oh, love a top of a sign.
There's not a lot of trees around here.
Well, normally I'm not covered in black muck and I can fly and go find a couple.
Yeah.
Clean my other wing, would you? I can't feel my wing.
Oh, yeah. Just really gently right there.
Did your uncle ever say any helpful platitudes about cleaning crows?
No, not even once.
Yeah, mine neither.
Mine either.
Thank you.
Old Norman.
So when you want to get to the edge of the woods, between where the field ends and the woods begin, which way do you go?
Literally any direction. The field never begins and it never ends, and it's as far as you can imagine and never ceases.
So where do the woods begin?
Oh, I mean, they're kind of interspersed, I think.
So technically, where the woods begin, the field ends, and then a field starts again on the other side.
Whoa. I mean, I just want to get to where there's more peanuts, to be honest.
Well, if the field never ends, we're never going to find that peanut farm. So we're going to need some help getting out of here to find the peanut farm. And
oof. All right. I'll do my best. I can flap a little. I got a little soreness in the joints.
Well, I realize you did a lot of work today.
Every day.
It's not easy bouncing around from post to post, heckling people and talking to strangers, giving directions, being helpful.
I do a lot of cawing.
Right. And I wasn't even counting the time you spend cawing, because Do you ever get a break from that?
When I'm telling somebody they're terrible, or I'm taking their hat, or being fed peanuts. It's a busy life. You know, it's
Right?
good to be appreciated. I turned to the little girl. It's good to be appreciated.
So if we follow you, if you like fly overhead in the moonlight and we follow you, we'll get to a little bit of forest, right?
There's trees, but I'm saying the field, it's endless.
Well, Grit, you got any ideas?
Well,
Besides
one thing I know.
finding a place to clean your face.
What?
Finding a place to clean your face. That's the other. That's an idea.
I think she looks badass.
Well, yeah, but if you don't look not badass occasionally, then everybody just takes your badassedness for granted. You got to surprise them with it.
Kids, never clean your face again.
You just gotta keep on upping the level of badassadry.
Yeah, let's go.
So, you know, it occurs to me that if the field never ends, then maybe we were always inside the field.
Yeah.
And we're just now becoming aware of it.
Sure.
And how the never-ending nature of the field really has always been there.
Mhm.
And it's something that we can just kind of accept even as we journey forward in life. If I had an uncle, you'd probably say something like that, but I don't have an uncle.
You don't have an uncle?
I don't have an uncle.
I did. He never said anything like that. What about yours?
Mostly a lot of.
Really, honestly, that's mostly what my uncle said too.
See, like
Uncles.
2 eggs in a nest.
Yeah, I mean, but I think if we can get into some woods, you know, you can find a place to clean off your face if you want to. People can choose to clean off their faces or not as they choose. I'm getting hungry. Peanuts are good, but I mean,
Yeah.
corn is fine. I mean, you can cook corn a lot of different ways. We've only tried like 6, and there's got to be at least.
Oh yeah, name all
12?
6 right now.
Yeah. So we had popcorn, corn on the cob, corn off the cob, cream corn, sweet corn, and corn kebabs.
Corn kebabs?
Yeah.
Wow.
You left off.
Y'all
hush
came
puppy.
prepared.
Well, I figured hush puppies were what we were doing tonight.
Yeah.
You say that every night.
That's what everybody says to me when I'm like getting in their face.
Hush puppies?
Yeah. They don't know I'm a crow.
Even though you're flying around.
I know.
Well.
So yeah, I think we start making our way towards some woods in the field.
And so what do you see? You have full narrative ability to say what
Gotcha.
Grit observes,
Yeah,
or experiences.
yeah.
And
I think we see. I think we see maybe a series of vignettes that of just. Like there's at least 6 of them of us coming to different signs. There's no audio overhead, just us having different conversations, gesturing at the sign. Sometimes the sign gets painted on, sometimes the sign gets knifed with a TG. And so there are different configurations every single time, but it's very evident we don't seem to be making progress to a set of trees that's in the not too distant range, right? Like we have been able to see these trees the entire time. We keep on making turns in order to get to them. Sometimes we go with the sign, sometimes we don't. I'm going to say that. Richard, I'm going to kick it over to you. What is the thing that breaks us out of the loop?
Well, we keep getting almost halfway there, and I think that's the trick is when you're always just getting halfway across the distance that you're on, you're never all the way there. So I think the trick is to go 3/4 of the way.
So like half of the half.
No, the half plus 50% more.
Of the half?
Right. Because half of the half would be 1/4.
So
That's
so
just 5.
as the three of you discuss Steiner math, I think a great tumbleweed of corn kernels whistles across the path, and it gets stuck to the sign that Grit is currently like just stabbing experimentally. Really, like the TG has already been made, but it's just sticking time at this point.
Yeah.
The tumbleweed is it's like bigger than a human head, and it's just like a clump of like large popped corn and kernels all just jammed into its crevices, and a cold wind is just like whipping it there, and it's like stuck on the base of the sign.
I pick it up. I hold it over
You
my
hungry?
head. I hold it over my head. Yeah, but check this out. And I turn around and then I do something you can't quite see. You see me pull my hood up and I turn back around and I've stuck it over my head and pulled my hood up over the top of it.
Oh, nice.
And I go, woo, I'm the tumble queen. Nom, 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 nom. I start eating some of the popcorn.
This is what happens when you get lost in the woods. And then you find out you were in a cornfield apparently the whole time.
Uh-huh. The fog starts to clear, and at this particular sign, it's not at a crossroads. It's this dusty length that goes on and on and on. It twists out over the hills in the distance, and you can see in front of you, behind you, to the left and right, rows and 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 rows of vines and vegetables and gourds and the occasional gigantic tuft of corn. A plant, each one maybe about 30 feet high.
That's some big ass corn.
Yeah, that'd win Corn Fest. If
Just on sheer size of stalk.
Yeah.
Rory seems a lot older than 45.
Look, in this never been 45 is pretty old.
I guess so.
Also, whenever you talk to a preteen, you age 20 years.
You do immediately.
Ew.
So, yeah, I'm gonna, I bet I could climb it. I just take off.
Good God. No, not a beanstalk.
I start climbing up the oversized stalk of corn to get a higher perch.
The wind sways you back and forth, and you need to clutch on to stay steady. But you can see, indeed, maybe over a hill, under a dale, there's one small tree. But you can see, indeed, the higher you go in all directions, curling over beyond the horizon, these long sections of vined gourds just go on and on and on and on. And your eyes start to kind of wiggle a little bit as it's hard to concentrate on these wide, long lines.
The kingdom of the Corn Queen. The tumble queen has become the Corn Queen.
What if these gourds edible?
Are you? Is that in
You
character?
asking Norman? You asking the Corn
Yeah.
Queen? Who you asking?
Asking Norman.
The ones that don't sing back, I tend to take bites out of.
Nice. All right. They tasty?
Oh yeah.
Winter squash. Cucumber.
I think everything is oddly autumnal themed here.
Autumnal
Okay.
squash.
Like some kind of summer squash, winter squash hybrid,
Right.
Don't eat a spring squash. They're disgusting.
Well, yeah, those are just flowers.
You say that now.
All right. I'm gonna is there like something that looks like a little pumpkin or something like that?
You tell me. You have full ability.
Oh, that's right. Good Lord. Yeah, pick up one.
So
That looks like
what does Rory see? You say Rory sees,
Yeah, I think I find like some little like green pumpkin-y looking things. And I just pull out my carving knife and start carving one up.
The moment your knife goes in, it hits something hard. Thunk.
What'd I just do? Norman?
Rory, come back to me, Rory. Hello?
Hello?
What's
wrong?
Kid, Rory's gone. Where'd he go?
What?
The bird takes flight and drifts around in great spirals to the Tumble Queen and lands next to you on a huge leaf.
I didn't give him permission to leave. How dare he define the Corn Queen?
Well, I don't know what happened to him.
What was he doing?
Oh, he's probably found a spring squash, the idiot, even though I warned him.
Aren't spring squash just flowers?
That's what he said.
I'm gonna start shimmying down the corn vine. Start looking at we see Grit start looking around for Rory. Did your knife go with you, Rory, or is it sitting there on the ground?
I think it probably went with me because I was holding it. It's as likely to go with me as my clothes and my hat. Since Norman's not stolen my hat yet.
Start just yelling out, Rory, where are you?
Maybe he wandered off. He was looking kind of tired.
Yeah, I guess, but we were together. We were hanging out and it was all fine. And now he's gone. And it would have been nice if he had asked permission or at least informed me before he wandered off.
So what do you see, Rory?
Well, I think I see little house in the middle of the field. Can't quite tell what's growing in the field. And it is early morning. Blue sky. And yeah. So I'm going to walk towards the house. Knock on the door.
It slowly creaks open.
Oh, that wasn't creepy at all. Hello, anybody here? Anybody here?
Mads, you can play whoever you want.
Okay. I mean, I wasn't sure like when I could break in or like
literally any time you want.
Okay.
And I'm giving you permission. You can absolutely do whatever you want.
Okay. Yeah. I mean, I think in this house, You hear, you don't see, but there's slants of shadow. Not light, but shadow. And from those slants of shadow, you can hear, whomever you want to be here. Who are you looking for? Where do you want to go?
Well, that's a very strange response to just like, who's here? I'd sort of like to get out of this field.
You are. You're in a house.
Right. But I mean, like, where I'm not surrounded by the field, or at least by this field, by the. Also, have you seen a 12-year-old?
Not yet.
Hey, kid. Oh, not yet. Okay, I don't want to drown that out. That was very good. That was a very good response. As you poke around shouting Rory's name over and over, Grit, you see a lump of soil smoothing away. It's pretty small. Probably could be held within the length of both your hands, and it's wriggling off.
You said
into
digging
into the cornfield.
You said digging wasn't a good idea, but look at you. You're under the ground, Rory. I start to chase after it.
Rory, you hear the dulcet tones of the tween's voice. It's echoing throughout the house.
Oh, good Lord. I thought you said you hadn't met a preteen yet, and yet echoing throughout your house is her voice. Hey, Grit, are you in here?
This is a place of all comers. This is a place where they all come.
There's not much of a crowd here now.
Grit, you hear the voice coming out of the lump, and the lump is tearing off into the field.
I'm gonna get you, and I start chasing after it with wild abandon. There's a couple of like leaps to try to get it, and it just like it'll pause or scoot in a totally different direction as that's happening before I just land flat on top of it at one point in time. And
I think you hear crashing in the house above you, Richard. I mean,
somebody running around.
Rory.
Somebody running around in the attic.
Yep. You hear crash as if like a body is thrown itself on the floor, on the ceiling above you.
I love that. I actually think like you see a shake, like the ceiling shake above you as like all of a sudden Grit just crashes, like literally crashes through the ceiling, having landed on this thing above. Like there's splintered wood.
12-year-old in the attic now. So I'm going to go up and get the 12-year-old out of the attic. Please don't shoot me for trespassing or nothing. We're trying to get out of your house, out of your field, out of your farm. We just want to get away.
As you put that first foot on the stairs, that's when we see me crash down through.
And now both of you see this gaping, splintering hole in the ceiling, and a crow's head pops in. You okay, kid?
Yeah, I got him, I think.
Ooh, what's down here?
I'm right here.
Old Norman hops down to the hole and starts hopping around.
Hey, Norman, you ever been in a place like this before?
Nope.
Crows don't normally go into houses, I say as I stretch and get up off the ground.
Are you all right? You felt kind of hard.
I've fallen harder.
Very good.
Yeah.
Oh,
Sometimes you don't want to fall as hard as that.
Yeah, you probably don't, but like for me, it's all about Can I get a bigger, harder fall?
Oh dear. Wow.
That was a pretty good one. I'm not gonna lie.
14's gonna hit like a load of bricks for you, isn't it?
Yeah, I'm gonna hit it back also.
Oh
Wow, it's
yeah.
pretty great in here. You see Norman jump onto a bookshelf and just start tearing books off, and they all start clattering to the ground.
Hey, be a little careful. There's somebody supposed to be here. Heard a voice.
You got it. Careful. A book is thrown up and like flies past your face.
I grabbed the book out of the air.
Whoa! Haha! Pretty slick, Rory.
I think what you're going to notice. I think what you're going to notice, though, when you see all this stuff flying around, though, I think you're going to notice there are no shadows. Nothing casts a shadow.
Hey, Norman.
Uh-huh. What's
Could
up,
you,
old peanut buddy?
For 2 peanuts, would you throw one of those cookbooks over there up in the air?
Oh, I mean, you certainly are overselling yourself. I'd do that for free, but I would like the peanuts up front, please, very much.
I give you one up front, the other one, when the book flies up in the air.
You got it.
I need grit. I need you to watch that book fly. Keep
I
your
never
eye
seen a
on
book
it.
fly.
Yeah, sure.
All right. Toss it.
Peanut, please.
Oh, Mr. Norman.
I don't work for free, but I do work for peanuts.
I gave you a peanut, and you got another one waiting at the end of the job.
He eats the peanut, and he throws the cookbook into the air, and it spirals slowly, perfectly. Everyone's watching it.
The title of the book is To Serve Graham.
To Serve Graham. All of us hear a faint crackling sound of a far off, mournful singing voice. And as it swirls down, there is not a shadow underneath it, or you, or I, or anyone else. So, Mads, you have no change, right?
Correct.
And I think the answer to did you make it out of the cornfield is yes, because now you're in this weird house, right?
It's true.
I call for a fade out.
Okay.
Da-da-da-da. That's a chapter.
We did it. We did a chapter.
We did a chapter. In terms of timing and the stream, I find that once comfort level is there, the second chapter tends to go a little faster. And then I think, depending on where that is and what that leaves us, we'll give enough time for wrap up at the end as well. So table, based on where we are and tonally what's created, the chapter 2 is known as the Traveler's chapter, which kind of focuses on them taking a little bit of ownership, a little more power, so they would be the one narrating. Of course, chapter 3, our big climax, that would be the Terror's chapter, in which the Terror is going to have the most change. So what are we feeling? What feels, in the most basic sense, what does the story need?
What was our original question? How do we get out of the field?
Will you get out of will you find the end of the cornfield?
And the next chapter, it's our chapter.
Well, no, it's not linear. So you can do 1 again. You can do 2. You can go straight to 3. Part of the chapters as a pacing mechanic means that you can do it however you like, and that actually gives you different kinds of arcs that you want to create.
Oh, love that.
Well. Yeah.
If there's more than one person that's in a role, how does that work for the lead in for a chapter? Because you have a where and what's going on, and then you end the narration, the beginning narration, with a question.
Yep.
Is it a question between the two of the travelers, or one of them just comes up with a question?
Yeah, I have found that people have been pretty like democratic. They're like, no, you, oh no, you. So
Fist
it
fights.
it's I've yet to find some fist fighting indie RPG people to make a big deal about it. I
Coming
like the
soon to
idea
Save
of
Against FearCon in York,
I
PA.
Sunday, Sunday,
No holds
Sunday. Yoshi
barred.
Tony versus Graham to the
Oh
death.
no.
Or will it be Grant, the grudge match of the century? I mean, I already made a Steiner math reference. I like the combined narration
Yeah.
too, where one person jumps in and somebody adds or whatever. They can confer to be like, well, who has the question? Oh, I have a good one. Oh, okay. It's pretty mutable based on the people's experiences.
Okay.
I have a draft question for Tony to consider.
Okay.
Will we ever find the person who owns this house?
Will you ever find the person who owns this house?
Is that your suggestion
Or
question to ask, or?
Yeah, we're spitballing right now.
Oh well,
Yeah.
before we even get into that, what chapter are we going to play? Are we going to do another Arcadian chapter? Are we going to do a Traveler's chapter, or are we going to do the Terror?
I think we should try out a Traveler's chapter, unless we want to jump straight to the Terror.
It is really interesting to jump straight to the Terror because essentially you're establishing a B plot that then you can come back and thread together, which is a really fun narrative conceit.
Ooh.
I kind of like that actually.
Yeah, I
actually,
agree. I feel like this slow burn with Mads, and now that we're in this house and Mads taking a little bit of that thing, means then as we're shifting focus into what's going on, like that feels like appropriate for kind of the pacing we've set up. What do you think, Gets?
Yeah, no, that's fine. So
Hell
basically,
yeah.
if it's the Terror's chapter, then the Terror would do the opening narration and then come up with
Right.
a question.
Right. So so a couple things. So in the wonderful playlist that we're not using, you would look through it.
Though I
pick a
did
song.
link to in the chat.
Thank you. Of course. We'll be playing all of that as our entrance music at Save Against Fear. So you're going to think of a question to ask, and the goal of us as players within the chapter is to answer that question. That part, it's what kind of leads us to the end of it. And because you're the Terror, you can feel free to play with leading questions. You can use it as a tool to be like, what is Rory most afraid of, or how do they discover they'll never going to escape? Like, you can really lead forward with the stuff that you've done with direction that,
Right.
and then the narration itself is where are we and what's happening, and you
Right.
end by asking the question.
Now, would this be a continuation of where we ended off, or could it be someplace
Time's pretty wobbly. So it's,
Really?
again, completely up to whoever's the chapter to establish. That's why the narration is about establishing the physical location and the circumstance. So, and again, it's the never was, so time and space are kind of wobbly
Yeah.
anyways. So it's
But
up to you to decide where we are and when we are and what the relation to the other chapter is.
But it's one of the things I liked about that structure. Like, you could be like, I'm going to go 40 years back in time and establish an earlier beat, or I'm going to go to a nondescript period of time, or this was 5 minutes ago, or it's right now. It doesn't matter. Like, all of those things are options.
Love it. Okay.
Absolutely.
Just want to make sure, because I mean, I know, loosey goosey for anything could be, maybe more structured, but time is
And-
whatever.
And really, like, we should all be hopping in, and even if you like if you were like, hey, Rory and Grit are not here, we'll still hop in as NPCs and use our roles as the
Yep.
interact with
You
the
have full
right.
power to do that. The Travelers, when you're in scene, you're using the principle of narrative truth to create the narrative, but it's from the perspective of your characters most of the time. Otherwise, you're free to, like, you could have told me something that Norman did.
Right.
You could, and you have full ability to do that.
Okay. Alrighty. I think this is sepia colored, because as we see this sepia colored frame in the camera panning in with kind of like those crackles and hairs on the film, you hear what sounds like twanging of a stringed instrument. Maybe a bandolier, maybe a banjo. And then there's like some intermittent singing of a woman who's wailing or moaning in the breeze. You can tell there's a breeze because the road is dusty, the road is dry, and you can almost hear the susurrus of the dirt being blown across this wide plain. No corn as of yet, or maybe the corn is long past. But this house, this dark house, sits there. The windows are cracked. There is rags. There are steps leading into the house. And inside is a single person, a small woman, an old woman with sunken cheeks, eyes deep set. And she has a tone of gray around her in this sepia-colored frame. And she sits back in her chair and looks at the strangers that have entered into her house from the dusty road. And she says, "You've come here. You've seeking shelter. You don't know where you've been. You don't know where you're going. You just want out. What will you give to get out? What will you sacrifice?"
I think there's a middle-aged man looks across at you and just says, "Well, I mean, we don't have much, but we can work if you need work, or we can, it's dusty outside. I don't know if anything would grow, but we could work the soil. I mean, we've just been walking for so long, and we're so thirsty. This is the first thing we've seen, and I don't know how long."
Day and night just blend in here. But I have something for you to drink if you really want it.
Oh yeah, it's so dusty out there. Like I mean, anything would be welcome.
There's a diegetic shift as the sound that we're hearing. We look over, and behind the woman sitting, there's a phonograph, and it's slowly winding down. It's losing its power. Its crank, and the song is starting to get elongated, and it's starting to slow down. It's starting to distort. And there is this bubbling cauldron set above the fireplace, and the top of it is chattering with steam.
She turns towards it, and she has grasped from a sideboard maybe two very delicate-looking cups. They are dark, not regular china. They look like they're made of some sort of stone-like material, but yet they're very delicate looking. And they kind of clatter in the way that pebbles would in a saucer as she pours some viscous liquid from the bubbling cauldron into each of these cups and brings it over gently to the middle-aged man and his companion. What does his companion look like?
And then what does our middle-aged man look like? Remind me, Tony.
Um, he looks he's Dust Bowl sad, so he's got long brownish hair. He's got streaks on his face, not like from crying, but mostly from the dust outside, right? Like that look of somebody who's just been out in like blowing wind with particulate in it for too long, where it's not necessarily that he looks, but it does create an overall kind of sad appearance to him. Brown eyes, skin that maybe clothes that maybe used to have color but have become so bleached as to only be a mix of grays and browns.
I think it's two middle-aged men, but like one short and one tall, or there's like a physical difference between them. But I think they're both Dust Bowl sad.
I think I'm a little more like my sad is a little more agitated, a little more annoyed. What is that you're got in the cup there?
Oh, this is homebrew tea. Guaranteed to satiate your thirst.
Well,
Tea always makes me thirsty.
It bubbles, and at first the smell is caustic and foul, but it shifts, and you're like, your nose starts to acclimate, and your second thought, both of you, are no, it's earthy. It smells like it came straight from the ground.
I mean, I've told you, don't be so ornery when people are offering support. I mean, is a hot drink on a hot day what I'm always after? No, but I mean, there are plenty of parts of the world where I am sure this is a normal thing that normal people do.
Yeah, well, normal thing normal people do was kick people off their land when they didn't make any money. That was a normal thing normal people did. So you'll pardon me if I don't trust every normal person we run into.
Oh. You'll find that things aren't normal here, youngster.
Oh, well, that sounds promising. Not normal.
Well, I offer. And there's even a little bit of a cookie next to it. You suddenly realize that, like on the saucer with the cup of the viscous liquid, you see like what looks like a little like macaron like next to it. Then you didn't even see her like grabbing it or grabbing anything that looked like a cookie tin. But it's there.
Each cookie has a like a jack-o'-lantern face on it. Which reminds me, I didn't talk about change. Where this is the terrorist chapter?
Yeah.
So you have 3. I have 2. Each of you start with 1.
Yeah. Or we start with 1 together.
Each?
Okay.
Yeah.
But they can only change. Sorry, I just wanted to clarify. They can only
Yes.
change what you say. Arcadian.
Correct.
Yeah.
Correct.
Yeah.
You can change whatever they say.
Um,
And only I can change what you say. Or
True.
Contradict
Yes.
something that's been established, and then say, nope, that's not what it is at all, and then replace it with something else.
Got it. Okay.
look, just
You'll just have to. You'll have to pardon me, ma'am. I don't. We keep getting given a lot of gifts, and they all come with a pretty heavy price tag.
But everything has a cost, youngster.
Well,
Everything has a consequence.
Certainly be nice if people told you that up front.
I mean, she just did. Like, we only just met this woman, and she's already being forthright and honest, and has given us this delightfully earthy homebrew tea. And just put the biscuit in your mouth. Put the cookie in your mouth.
Did you? Did I tell you not to drink it?
You said what?
You
He
want?
says as he's slurping away at the tea.
Great comedy beat, like the hard cut to you.
That's great.
You're the one all hungry and thirsty?
You have been complaining all day long about how thirsty you are, and now you have something to drink and you refuse to drink it. I think that you just want to be upset sometimes.
Yeah. Ma'am, is it all right with you if I go beat the dust out of my jacket in your mudroom?
Funny you should call it that. Sometimes, well, dust and mud return to where they came from the shadows, from the dark. You're welcome to go back there if you so choose. But you may want to fortify first. Would it help if I offered a little bit of a incentive for the homebrew?
Cool.
And she immediately takes out from behind her back. Again, you have no idea where the hell she's pulling this stuff from. From behind her back, she's got like a square bottle that has, to you, sir, a familiar logo of a interesting whiskey. And she pours 2 shots into that teacup.
The brand is Toffadil Grand, and the T and the G are huge script right on the side of the bottle.
Now, if that doesn't wet your whistle, I don't know what will.
The earthy tea is thick and hard to drink, but it is delicious. It's one of those things where the first tip is far too hot. You don't think you can drink it all. But then very quickly, your mouth acclimates and it gives you this warm, homey feeling.
This like initial like cough on my first sip as it kind of catches, and then I start to just slurp it down. I mean, if you're not going to drink the tea, I mean, go ahead, drink the whiskey.
And whiskey's in the tea.
Well, I mean, yeah, but it's not as thick now, and that was your complaint.
Is your mudroom back there, ma'am? I just want to knock some dust off the boots and my coat.
Indeed. Go right ahead, youngster. And as she tells you this, you notice her voice starts to get that duality feeling, as if there's 2 voices that are talking to you. One of them female, one of them male. And they're kind of growling at you. A smile on her face. A wide, too wide smile.
I walk back in that direction, looking for a place I can just sort of knock some dust out of my coat, clean off my shoes.
The hallways are bright enough that you can actually see where you're going. It's a long way to go to that square or rectangle of light to knock some dust and mud off your clothing. But you cast no shadow, sir.
I'm so sorry. He's just like this sometimes. You hear in the distance.
It's fine. It's absolutely fine. You just rest here a spell. See about quenching that thirst. And then we can talk about how you can help with work in the soil.
I already feel so much better. I mean, just from this little bit.
you realize that you're really thirsty now. You're more thirsty, and you reach the mudroom. As such that it is, it's certainly a square antechamber where the floor, walls, and a ceiling are thick with a black, viscous dust and muck.
Can I get a little bit more,
Master?
please?
Absolutely. You hear in the distance, and you see the splash of the tea. It doesn't really splash, actually, as it splodges into the saucer. And another magical cup. I mean, another magical. I don't know what this balloon thing is.
What
What's
just
going on?
happened?
What just happened? I
Another
don't know what this
magical
is.
thing
Whoa,
happened.
the terror's out of control.
I don't know what that is. What the hell just happened? I just saw balloons.
I have no idea.
Mads, you're bending between realities.
I swear to God, I'm just able to create this. Anyway, what I was trying to
It's
say,
the power of the game.
serious, splodging onto the saucer, which has another magical, another biscuit, another cookie appearing on it out of nowhere, inviting you to dip it into the tea before you take it and eat it.
I pick up the cookie that actively has a frown on it, like it's an unhappy jack-o'-lantern. That I pick up and I just kind of dip in the cookie. You say, is this the what? This, like, just dip it. I mean, usually I just eat them separate and just kind of use the tea to wash it down. You think it's better to dip it?
It's wonderful to dip it. It might even give you an extra little texture to your flavor that you have never tasted before in your entire life and never will again.
Yeah, and I dips it in and takes a bite and starts kind of coughing again. Initially, oh yeah, that first hit's always a little weird. But yeah, I mean, like I've never tasted anything like this. It's sleek. I don't know, can you taste sleek? It's dark. Like darker than any chocolate I've ever had.
Some people, and you hear this as if it's from a distance, even though you're looking right at her and she's right in front of you, you hear as if from a distance, some people have said it tastes like silk. Some people have said it tastes like trees and shadow and death. And in the mudroom, you, sir, see the splatters of this stuff start to form as if it's creating pictures of the cornfield, like starting to sprout on the wall. And in this cornfield, you see these lost figures, a little girl and an older man, like looking for each other in the cornfield. Like pictures on the wall made of this viscous substance.
Good Lord, I'm tired. Take my jacket off and just grab a stick or something and just start beating it away from me, trying to get the deep ingrained dust out.
I'm going to give you a change card, sir. No, you will not beat a stick onto your coat to get the dust out. What you will be doing is taking that stick and plunging it into the wall, the moving wall pictures of shadow, and dust and gore, and making your way through the cornfield looking for Grit.
The flecks of the dust and dirt and grime on you start to flake off, and then, as you barely even notice, so do flakes of yourself, until as you enter into the wall, you seem to dissipate, and the muck of the walls around you has an oddly human quality to it.
Back with the tea, I think as you hear her telling you about what it tastes like to other visitors, and you are feeling, I'm going to use a phrase that when I heard it, I just got the willies, but you get the mouth feel of the cookie biscuit in with the tea, that thick viscous tea, and it's roiling around in your mouth and hitting around your mouth and your taste buds like little pebbles, little stones. And then you realize that you are splashing around in this muck, as if you are in a pit of viscous something as you're digging your way out.
You realize that you're drowning, and the swishing of the viscous liquid that you find yourself in is circling and pulling you down like in a drain.
I think I'm going to, what is it? No, but
yeah, you want to go ahead? You contradict me.
Yeah, so I do think
What happens
it is
instead?
swirling around, and it is.
I'll take your thing.
Oh, sorry, here.
Thank you. Yeah, hand it to me. It's here now. It
is swirling around, and it is dragging me down. Well, it feels like at first like it's dragging me down, but then all of a sudden I realize like it's pulling me towards something. And I am pulled down into it deep, and then all of a sudden it feels like it is pushing me back upwards. As we see a hand.
That's exactly what I was going to do.
Break out of the dirt. Underneath a sign that somebody has recently painted something on, and we see some footprints headed off into the distance. 2 pairs of footprints. As we see the area earlier that Grit had been digging in the mud. This lanky, kind of long, Dust Bowl sad, but skeletal form pull itself out of the ground.
You wouldn't notice except if you saw the first chapter, but the splatters and the splotches on you, this middle-aged skeletal figure, resemble, if not completely match, the splatters and splotches that were on Grit in chapter 1.
I think there's a wipe cut of the sepia tone. It starts on the left and vanishes across, and now we are in full color, but we're still in that room with the cauldron and the woman sitting, and that very same door creaks open, and a middle-aged man and a little girl and a crow step through.
Oh, how wonderful. Visitors.
She does this kind of rocking sit in her little chair as it creaks. And then the audience will hear like the little twangs of the bandolier and a woman moaning and wailing in some sort of sing-song chant. As she stands up, she goes to the bubbling cauldron at the fire, and she will pull out ladles of this viscous fluid that she puts into delicate stone cups to offer to her guests, even the crow.
Here you go. This should help refresh you. And if you have the little cookie on the side, it gives you such a mouthfeel that you will have never had in your whole life or ever will again.
That's that's kind of a fabulous beat to like fade out on, I think.
Okay.
What was the question we asked?
What were they sacrifice? And I think in this case, it might be applicable to the two random people
Yeah.
you were playing as, you know?
Cool.
Yeah.
Do we want to do a Travelers chapter?
I think I gotta call it good there.
You want to call it there?
Yeah.
All right, cool.
Yep.
Okay.
Oh,
I
man,
won't
that was
complain as somebody who
fabulous.
has to be up at 5 a.m. tomorrow and go to work at 5:30.
Oh gosh.
And then come back home and stream some more. So I'm super excited. It was a blast. Let's do our reaction roll. Reaction rolls is a live stream inside of a live stream. It's our chance to sit down with the creator of a game that we just played and talk about what it was like to play that game. Today we just finished playing Under the Autumn Strangely by Graham Gentz. It's part of our Scream series of streams this week. It's our spooky week streams. This is a project that came out as part of Zine Quest 4. Who even knows at this point in time? Last August, and is about to ship out to backers all over the place. We've got a chance to play with Graham a lot on stream. We actually, Mads and Graham and I got to play Lovecraft-esque 2E a couple of weeks ago with that creative team. And Graham, you mentioned it had some similar tones to it, and I can definitely see some of those different pieces. I have a ton of thoughts, but for folks who are just joining us or joined us late, why don't you tell us a little bit about who you are, what you do, and tell us about Under the Autumn Strangely.
Yeah, so my name is Graham Gentz. I use he, they pronouns. I'm a facilitator, writer, and game designer. And I wrote Under the Autumn Strangely. It's a pastoral horror game. And I love games that kind of have structure, but also I've described it as buckets. So the idea of people coming with their own ideas and their own expectations about what it is, so that players have ownership over the game that they've made fully, that they know that everyone is equally important at the table and that their contributions matter.
Love it. I had a blast playing, like I said, but let's check in with our other players, see what their thoughts were about the game. Why don't we start with Mads? Why don't you tell us who you are, what you do, and what it was like to play Under the Autumn Strangely?
Hello, Mads, she, they pronouns. You can find me on YouTube on Madencholy, as well as that on Discord and X. I really enjoyed this. I mean, I'm planning on running it for a different event in 2 weeks for Open Hearth Gaming's Shared Hearth event online, and I can't wait because I kind of like skimmed through it just to kind of get an idea. But I mean, it's always wonderful to do it with a designer, so can try to get a handle on like how they present it, because that's always the important thing. I mean, you always want to know like how to introduce this to people that don't know anything about it or know very little. And it's like, Graham, like, you did a great job in like, taking us through it, like explaining it very simply, and then just only giving us enough to go by just to start playing the game, instead of like, loading us up with too many details all at once, which I enjoy. Thank you so much. And so now I'm used to like narrative games like this, where you do a lot of like just playing around with it, improvising, just going yes and then I love the no but, for change cards, change tokens for each of the roles to affect other roles, and I really enjoyed that very simple mechanic. it's a little bit slow going because it's like if the table's not familiar with how each other plays, or if they're not necessarily comfortable right at the bat to be able to just like come up with stuff on the fly, then maybe you just have to prod a little bit, and maybe whomever's facilitating the game will just need to do a little bit more like prompting questions, like help with some like paint the scene type of things. But aside from that, I mean, if they're comfortable with role play, they're comfortable with just coming up with beautiful details of the narrative within their roles. I think it's an amazing game. I think this is wonderful, and I love this. You can change it up. The chapters, like you can do 1, 2, 3. You can do 1, 3. You can do probably even 2, 3, 1, or if you wanted to, like just change it up. Structure is totally fluid, and I enjoy that a lot. So A+. Can't wait to run this for. I'm actually going to go up to six players, me included. So this is going to be hilarious. Can't wait.
Awesome. Do you have any questions you wanted to ask Graham?
No, I mean, like, to be honest, it's like I really get I get a better handle of a game when I get to play it, first off. So, I mean, I think any questions that I did initially have, I got answered by playing the game. And then if there's any little details, little nuances that I think I miss when I go through the actual rules, I'll just DM Graham and say, "How do you do this again?" But I mean, or I'll just make it up on the fly and call
There
that
you
the
go.
the house rule,
That's the right answer.
the house rule for the table for that moment.
Awesome. Richard, how about you?
Hey, I'm Richard Ruane. I use he, him pronouns, and I am the creator of Moonlight on Rose Hill Beach, which is back on Kickstarter right now for hardbacks and new mysteries, and working with streamers and other creatives to get more Roseville Beach stories out there. So Graham, the nicest thing I'm like, it occurred to me while we were talking about chapters that my favorite thing about this is that and I mean this is a profoundly high compliment because it's one of my favorite games. My very first story game was Swords Without Master, and one of the things I love about that game is just the way phases work. There's so many good things about that game. And I feel I got a real strong vibe of Swords Without Master's phases and how they interplay with each other, how there's definitely a trajectory to the story, but there's no right answer for what phase comes next. Like you can end a phase and go back into the same phase again. You can have an entire session that's nothing but rogues phases. And so I really like the free form way that chapters work here, and the way that shifts who has more narrative power, and clearly we had like a really excellent group.
We're all amazing,
and we
and
freaking
good looking
amazing
and humble.
Yeah, I mean, it's just I just got to call awesome people when I see awesome people. So but I think my question is specifically on Americana, and looking at Americana horror, just because I have a friend, John Harness, who refers to some stuff that he and I have been talking about together, as lovingly refers to sort of like my whole like but what if Lovecraft was not our RPG horror departure point? What if Stephen King was our RPG horror departure point? And he likes to call that my like obsession with 80s Americana bullshit. So I'm really fascinated also to see sort of like the very different take on Americana that's also horror. Could you tell us like what were your sort of inspirations? What are your touchstones? What were sort of like things that influenced you in sort of putting this together?
Yeah. So the clearest one is Over the Garden Wall, the
Right.
miniseries, and what about it struck me was not the show itself, which of course appealed to me, but I kept having conversations over and over and over again with the different people who all had different takes. They all had different ways they were seeing it. And so for me, Pottsfield is the best thing ever. And my cover artist said, "Oh, I think Greg is the cutest." And it didn't occur to me to think of Over the Garden Wall as cute, but I'm like, but of course it is. And so I incorporate music and theme into all of my games that I either run or write. And so the opportunity to find this inspiration and be defined by what was history and play with that and talk about there not being this established thing. We always talk about Americana and we talk about American history like it is set in stone, but it's just as fictitious as everything else. We've created all of these legends and things, this like make America great again thing, which is a horror story. It's also a lie. So how do we use these things to create our own interpretation, our own lens, because they're all equally untrue in the truth that we bring to it. So that's where I've ended up as a design.
Can I just make a mention? It's like I thought it was interesting too, because like, you'd use the touchstone over the garden wall, which I'm not very familiar with actually. But I will say when I started like, skimming through this game and then we started playing it, the things, especially with your music and theming that you brought up, I just kept on picturing like folk elements of Big Fish and Oh Brother, Where Art Thou?
Yeah.
Absolutely.
So much so.
Yeah.
I was just like that's why I brought in like the whole twanging of the stringed instrument and like,
Big Fish is a really interesting call out in that. It's a very, very, very good touchstone for something like this too.
Yeah, those are both very good examples because they're both about storytelling. They're also about lies. Like the interesting thing about No Brother Art Thou is that it's an adaptation of the Odyssey, but the Coen brothers did not read the Odyssey before they made it.
right.
So they say that it is, but they actually had no idea. So it's actually this 3-layered lens of acculturation of what the story is, which is wonderful. It just again tells you that it's all lies.
Right.
And like the truest things are the lies, right? And of
Yeah.
course, Big Fish, very, very similar themes with like
Yes.
who is the big fish and who gets to be it. So that's great. The fact that you aren't familiar with this thing, it was for me I'm not trying to translate this piece of media. It's more, what are the things that I thought about and continue to think about, and then bring that into a page and make this thing.
Love it. Thank you.
Richard, do you have any questions you want to ask as follow up?
That was my question.
Oh, that's right. I thought it was great, and it's really funny. I also was going to talk about Swords Without Master, but not about phase play. I was going to talk about motif building. And so my real question, we'll just start with, is why are you ripping off Swords Without Master by using 2 of the ideas in there to make your own game? Give us the real scoop right now.
I'm not. The
No, absolutely.
motif building
Lawsuit.
I ripped off for my other game, which is in the anthology, level 1 anthology this past summer, which is called Old Gods of Media.
Yeah.
In Old Gods of Media, you fictitious characters like Mickey Mouse or Sherlock Holmes are in fact gods, and so you play them through many eras. And I did use the motifs for that. Where did I steal motifs for this?
Nothing. The TG you dropped in on the whiskey bottle, like, and it just the nature of it, right? Like the terror is really meant to be a slow motif building thing where you're dripping out these pieces over time. I think that paired with the phase play, like you as part of it was just how you were playing. It's not actually what's written explicitly within the text, right? And so, which is again one of my favorite GM tools that I think excellent GMs do, especially with the narrative spaces. But it's a oftentimes left unexplored tool. But I think this game like really asks you to say, hey, as you're building this narrative arc, you're going to continually come back to these symbols. But one of the things I love about it, the interpretive quality of it, it's left open to the table and the individual, right? So you could, even if you picked the same, even if somebody said, oh, we're going to start with the same premise every single time, and like you're going to pick the same kind of symbols that you're going to play with in the terror, like if you did all those things by rearranging the scenes or looking at how the motifs build throughout the course of it, you're going to end up with a very different story every single time. Even if you did start from the same proposition, you aren't going to most of the time, so you're going to need something even more varied. I just thought it was really, really great to see some of those different little pieces coming through. But yeah, not explicit text thing, but I think how the game is written and then the way you were as a player also engaging with it, also too, just really brought that to mind.
That was just
favorite.
Literary storytelling. It was just about bringing imagery and listening to people and building off those things.
Yeah, but that's what motif building is. I mean, like that literally at its core as a skill is all it is, and it is, like I said, I think an undersung skill at the table a lot of the time. But most of my favorite games or most of my favorite sessions of play more usually have that oftentimes baked into them as a concept, or are very open to that type of storytelling as well. So, but I think that paired up with the phase play did like trigger it in my brain also too. It's gorgeous art. I want to know a little also for people who haven't looked through the book. Tell me about where did you find it? Was this a commission piece, the skeleton rib
Oh,
cage with the cross at the top, or was that a piece of general use art?
no, so there's two sources where I took all of the art where I worked extensively with my layout artist. The one, True Ryan Khan, an incredible designer in his own right. We looked at old storybookiLlustrations.com, and then he found this 1,000-page 16th century treatise about monsters, which I then poured over every single page. And so a lot of that art I pulled out, and we spent a lot of time talking. I talked about what I wanted for the style. This is too spooky. This doesn't tell the right story. And so we had this compendium that we used to talk about how we were going to use it. The fact that it's pre-existing imagery meant that it's already also pulling on the themes of what I want the game to be, which is that people already know the story that they're trying to tell and that they reveal it through play.
Yeah. No, I think it's absolutely gorgeous. I love the way y'all pulled it together, but I think the thing that struck me the most really again was once we realized, hey, we can do these scenes in different orders, like what that opens up in play
Yep.
is really tremendous. Even at the very first, I think the hardest part for me was like a lot of times it's just like I don't want to challenge anything. Like this is what the things you're saying are amazing. Why would I ever want this to not be the case, even if it's horrible for my characters? Or the like, where we're at. Have you encountered that a lot in play? Have you experienced people who have hesitancy to trigger changes, not because of not knowing that they can, but because it's like, no, I'm just here for this. Can I just double down on that weird, cool shit you're saying? Has
Oh
that come
yeah,
up a lot?
I'm asking people actively to play against the way they've automatically been taught. I think that the yes and is now become pretty common parlance, but the no but is just as powerful. And teaching that as a tool means that we are pushing and pulling. This is a balancing act. It's a platform that has three corners, and so it's not all there. And what's going to occur is that because we're all pushing and pulling, if somebody goes too far, that's what the contradictions are for.
Yeah.
And you could say your character dies, your character breaks their leg, and there is a ramp up. In the early chapters, people are less there, and then by the time you get to the end, it is more antagonistic because you're creating this tension, which then allows people to build. And that's very exciting to see. People are initially just like folding through, and by the end the tokens are flying with more
That's awesome.
intensity, as I hoped they would.
Yeah.
I
No,
find
that's
it
great.
interesting. I mean, because I've played with something a little bit like this. If anybody's familiar with Hellfolk, it uses
Yes,
a token currency with like through drama system.
love
I
Hellfolk.
hacked it a bit because I really wasn't happy with like that like very adversarial token currency.
Yeah.
But for some reason, it works better here. I don't know why. I it just feels more natural to do it in this very surreal kind of not was aspect, like just kind of going through this world and then creating it as you go, as opposed to the structure of like something like Hill Folk using the structure of drama system. I don't know why. It set me off the wrong way, but like doing it here, I was just like, it's similar, but just more palatable. I don't know. Maybe I'm weird. I don't know.
The
But
For me, what I'm trying to do, so the other piece of the puzzle is the tonal clash part. So you think about every dragon game that you play, and you have the meme of the put upon DM who's like, I have this intense dungeon and I want to tell this grim dark story, but the PCs just want to make a lemonade stand and do that instead, and the DM is like ripping up their map and throwing it away. And for me, the reason why prep is death and why I like GMless games is because the lemonade stand is the game. You need to be listening to your players because that's what they have. And so I am saying, okay, you all have these jobs. We're all going to meet in the middle. And when one shifts too far to the other, then I have the tokens to be used. And then you decide, no, I don't like what you've done. But you're still automatically going to be balancing each other, all playing over because you all have equal footing. It's this same way that this democratic use of power makes all the players equally important.
nice.
Love it. 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 Good game, everybody. Good players. If you haven't gone to check it out yet, head over to the link down in the description of the video. Check out what Graham is up to and all the I also am like now I want to go play. It was Old Gods of Media. I want to go play Old Gods of Media.
That one is directly influenced by Swords of Outmaster. This one, I'm shocked that this is where you voted because it definitely wasn't a touchstone. But I am honored. I got to play Swords of Outmaster with Epi, and it was an amazing time.
We always talk about having Epi on to run it because it's such a singular piece, and we should at some point in time. And Epi's been totally open to it. We just haven't, which is dumb. But yeah, no, there is. Like I said, and there's always that weird and interesting thing. And one of the reasons I love running with designers is because it ideally allows not only your design of the game, but your play style and the things that may be unwritten to come through and let us see a little bit of that, whether those are supposed to be canon or not. Also, Old Gods of Media sounds like some good American Gods touchstone tropes also, too, which is one of my...
That and Small Gods by Terry Pratchett.
Yeah, two of my favorite little treatsies. And so... excellent. Please go check everything out. If you aren't subscribed or follow us, please do. Tomorrow we are going to be playing a game that I am very excited to announce is coming to Kickstarter way too soon because, man, it took Kickstarter forever to just accept my financial information, even though it did so willingly 3 weeks before that with the same exact information. We're going to be playing the Wassailing of Claus Manor, or the Wassailing. We are ambivalent about how it's pronounced, which was originally a Bedlam horror style adventure where you're playing the servants of a group of people driven insane by occult forces, but translated into you are servants of the Claus family in the 1940s. And as the global population has exploded, they have made weird, dark deals with eldritch forces, and you are their serving staff trying to keep Christmas on track. So we are formally shifting tomorrow from spooky season to holiday season, all in one game. It is a trophy dark written game by the team behind Butter Princess, but they have flopped roles. This time Mike Martins is doing the writing and Brian Sago is doing the art. We've also got Michael Van Vliet doing some of the writing as well. Super excited to be working with that team to help get this game published. It is pretty much done except for a few art pieces, so we are going to be funding it over the next couple of weeks. And then it will go immediately to digital release. And we're actually just hoping to have the physicals out, if not by Christmas, by Epiphany. And so with all that said, we hope you'll join us for that. It'll be our final, I think. Maybe we have one more after that. Oh, we have one more. We have Oops, All Draculas later this week also, too. So we've still got a few more EX Scream week streams. So come on back. Join us for all of those things. Go follow all these wonderful people and check out Under the Autumn Strangely over on Grant's itch page. We don't have a good way to end streams. And at this point, we're not interested in figuring it out. We're just going to wave at the camera until I take us off air. Bye.